Creepy.
Hello, and welcome to Creepy Culture, CM Life's scariest podcast, where we discuss horror movies, video games, music, and more. I'm your host, Stephanie Chipman.
And I'm your host, Tyler Clark, and this week we'll be discussing modern horror movies. We're going to discuss our favorite modern horror movies and how they impacted culture.
On this episode, we'll talk about which horror films scared us the most, impressed us with their special effects, or maybe even made us laugh.
And please tell us your favorite modern horror movies. Go to our Instagram, creepy_culture, both Ks. Go to YouTube, comment wherever you can find us, and tell us what movies Stephanie and I should watch next.
And so since this is kind of a two-parter, I think we should take a look back at our very first episode, Classic Horror Movies. And in the first episode, we discussed silent horror films. So, we talked about Nosferatu. We talked about a few different silent horror films. We talked about the Silver Age, so the Universal monsters. We talked about Frankenstein. And Professor Allman taught us how horror films are how they are a reflection of that generation's fears.
Yes, and then we talked about the slasher films that sort of started in the 70s and the uptake in gore, violence, nudity that happened in the 80s. Movies like The Thing, Friday the 13th, all of those good movies.
Ooh, all the good movies happened in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's what we're about to talk about. So let's start off by starting off again at the 80s, but kind of how they relate to the 90s. And earlier in the first episode, and if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out. We'll wait.
Go now.
Okay, yeah, you're back now, obviously. So last time, as you know now, we talked about Sleepaway Camp. We talked about Hellraiser. You've noticed probably by now that the 80s is filled with a lot of psychological horror. Not a lot of psychological horror, but a lot of supernatural horror. Like Pet Sematary, or there were some crazy ones, but it was mostly slashers, and a lot of like Supernatural, Children of the Corn, things that were offbeat, right? We even saw American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
But there was kind of a style to it, and there was a lot of limitations, I felt.
There's a lot of monsters and a lot of practical effects.
Yes, which, that Tyler and I love practical effects. But we had to go somewhere from that. And the first few movies that we saw in the 90s was Stephen King's Misery. I don't know if you've seen that film.
Yes.
Really good film, but it's more of a psychological horror. And there really wasn't that as much in the 80s. And I feel like you kind of see that transformation from, mostly just slashing, murder.
Well, they had to up the ante. Things weren't as scary in the 80s, but it was scary to people in the 80s.
Yeah.
But then as they got to see more of that gross psychological horror, they could stomach it easier. So filmmakers had to up the ante to scare you a little more gore, a little more psychological, just a little more everything.
I mean, yeah, when we talked about the 70s, we talked about Halloween. And, Halloween came out in 79, so I hesitate to even call it the 70s, but we had Halloween, which was distinctly not gory at all for being a slasher film. And then we get Friday the 13th. Then we get freaking Nightmare on Elm Street had buckets of blood.
Oh, yeah.
Buckets. So you're right. We have been upping the ante the entire time. And obviously, we can't put in we already had gallons of blood. Right,
yes.
From the 80s. We can't just turn to blood for the 90s. We got to go deeper.
They got to a point where it was like gallons of blood in Evil Dead, where it was sort of goofy, comical almost. It wasn't scary anymore, so they dialed it back, but upped the fear factor by making it realistic.
I agree with that. like urban legend, right? I don't know if you've seen the film. It's
Don't think
from 1998, the year I was born. And it's kind of like, it kind of encompasses all of those urban legends that I think we all know, that we're all familiar with, and makes them real in its own way. And I won't want to spoil the movie for you since we're only talking about it for a second, but you're right, it kind of becomes real. It infects our real life. It's like a group of friends who just happen to meet each other and form this friendship group, and you think it's all happy and merry, and then it immediately goes to, oh my god, where did this clown come from? Are we gonna die?
Horrible killer clown.
It has been that kind of like more realistic horror.
It's less killer clowns from outer space where they have giant boxing gloves knocking people's heads off. More, oh, that's a weird creepy clown in the sewer grabbing my brother. Whoa.
Wait. Well, it's like Jurassic Park. It's almost like a science fiction if you think about it. Like they're coming at things in a very realistic angle. Like, hey, scientists figured out how to make dinosaurs from these old dinosaur samples. And so that, like, you know, that premise doesn't sound scary, but like it sounds very realistic, especially now.
Yeah.
They are actually attempting to do those things.
I hope not.
Well, they're actually trying to do it with like mammoth DNA because they found a relatively like intact sample. But yeah, very interesting and way closer to reality than like American Werewolf in London, right?
Yes.
And even The Mummy, like you'd think, you know, because the Universal horror films, it's kind of along the same trope, but The Mummy is very like historical. It's like, oh, they're doing a dig, they're trying to like find these old artifacts, and then boom, the mummy's alive. I feel like you're right. It is very real.
I mean, I love that Brendan Fraser mummy movie. A little less on the horror on that one. But then there's movies that, like, well, it was the age of remakes that started.
Oh, yeah. And I don't have a lot of remake names in front of me, but I saw The Howling.
The Texas
Halloween.
Chainsaw Massacre ones.
Yep, that's true. I mean, they pretty much remade not either remade or made sequels for every good movie that happened in the 80s.
But they made them just brutal. Like those Rob Zombie Halloween ones, he's not messing around anymore. Now we're going for gore, we're going for nudity, we're going for all of that. There's a lot of psychological stuff in there. I know that Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake it's a little hard to stomach sometimes. It's very,
It's weird. It's good. It's just a little offbeat. Yeah, the 90s was an interesting time. And that's also where you kind of start to see the birth of horror comedy.
yes.
And you could label that as being thanks to Scream. Which you can't forget that Leprechaun came out 3 years before Scream came out. So where does the real comedy start? That's all I'm saying. And if you haven't seen Leprechaun, you should, because it has Jennifer Aniston in it. Is that enough?
Yes.
Is that
It's
enough?
Perfect.
No, but seriously, we don't really see that comedy as much in the 80s. Obviously, you know, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, how is that not hilarious? But it's more satirical. Like, Scream really kind of turns in on itself. It kind of makes fun of its own genre.
Yes.
At the same time, you're seeing that mix of comedy and psychological horror. It's very interesting.
Talking about Leprechaun, going back to that for just a second.
Yeah.
There was a remake for Leprechaun. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if
where
that was
it's
supposed
like-
to be a remake.
It was like, it had the Leprechaun name, but it was like way darker and weirder. It was not the normal wisecracking little short guy. It was like pretty much a Wendigo type thing.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was very disappointed being a
Yeah.
fan of the Leprechaun series because I liked it as a comedy. I thought it was funny. And, you know, I don't see anything wrong with trying to mix horror and comedy. As you know how big of a
Yes.
fan I am. I think that there's a right way to do it. I think Scream did it well, obviously more towards the horror end of it. But Leprechaun does it as well, and, you know, can't not talk about Troll 2 in that conversation.
Oh my god.
Which obviously is more towards the comedy spectrum, but the movie takes itself so seriously.
So bad it's good.
That's what the documentary is called.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've seen Troll 2, you got to see the documentary. That the guy who plays the kid in the movie is like directing the documentary.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You got to see it. It's really, really good. He meets up with the old actors. They talk about why the film was made the way it was.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the film literally took itself seriously. So that's why it appears that way. Very good film. But yeah, so we're kind of giving you an idea of how the 80s made the 90s and kind of how the 90s made this beautiful little platform for our modern horror movies to stand on today.
Yes. And
yeah, so we're going to start off by talking about some of my favorite modern horror movies.
all right.
And, my goodness.
Which one are you starting with?
I
You
think,
got some good ones on your list.
yeah, it was really hard to pick. I originally wanted to talk about the Saw movie. And I don't know, have you seen all of the Saw movies?
I have not seen all of the Saw movies. I've seen bits and pieces of every Saw movie, but like not all of them all the way through.
You're killing me, Smalls.
It's okay.
Let me give you the real reason why
Sell
I think
me
you
on
should
it.
watch them. And I kind of wrote this in the script a little bit, but I never follow the script anyway, so
What else is new?
yes. Basically, I don't consider the Saw movies separate entities. And I say this a lot when I talk about especially 80s horror films and stuff like that. When you have like a series like Halloween that's like a really long series, you have all these separate movies and they just don't feel cohesive. It feels like they made it up as they went. You know, it feels like they're like a middle schooler writing a series of stories. You know, they're making up as they go. And kind of just like, oh, I guess we have budget for the next movie. Let's incorporate a plot. Saw's not like that. When you watch the full Saw like series, it feels like somebody created the entire story for all the films together and then cut them up into movies. It feels way more cohesive. There's a twist at the end of every film, but they all tie in together really beautifully. It's very seamless. And the story is really, really good. It kind of like goes back and forth on like, you know, telling the current story and then kind of flashing back, hey, this is what you missed behind the scenes of the last movie. And it's just much more of a cohesive entity. And I feel like you don't see that as much. Even now,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
Saw came out
fair.
in 2004, to be fair.
Yeah. Those movies sparked a lot of debate and a lot of 2000s moms going, that's just torture. That's just awful. You can't show that. Which there are a lot of like awful scenes in there. The needle one gets me. I can't watch
Oh.
that.
That's Saw 2, where he throws her in the needle pit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is brutal. That's one of the really brutal scenes too. And I always think about the scene in Saw 2 where she puts her hands up in that box with the razors around the
Oh,
wrists,
yeah.
and she can't pull her hands back out.
And the back was open like the whole time. Wasn't that like the thing?
Yeah, she just wasn't
She just
using
didn't
her
look.
brain. But yeah, there's a lot of really, really gory scenes, and I hear that criticism a lot, and I've actually heard people argue that Saw is not a horror movie, which is all fine and dandy, but what category would it be in if it's not a horror movie?
A torture movie. I don't know.
Which is also horror.
Yeah. I mean, it
So-
is definitely horror. It's just very gory. There aren't a lot of scares in it. The scares are you recoiling at the sight of something gross.
Yeah, that's true. I
Sort
mean,
of a gross out.
yeah, and it's not. There's no jump scares. There's a lot of like mixed feelings because these people have done bad things, and I think that we like to see bad things happen to bad people, but you kind of get to know them and you realize that they're really not all bad, and that their punishment could be deserved or not. I feel like it creates
Usually
an internal
doesn't really
struggle.
fit the bill though. Like,
No.
hey, can you jump into this thing of syringes because you were a drug addict? or something. What was her backstory? I don't remember.
So Amanda's actually one of the main characters in the show. She's actually Saw's like assistant. One of them, anyway. She in the first film, she was one of like the witnesses because she was in a game. She was the one that wore the whole headgear, jawed bear trap thing. Yeah. She was the original wearer, and she actually won the game because she like knifed open her like partner, which because the key was in his stomach, right? He was actually still alive, and she like had to murder him to live because she was a drug user. And she managed to get out, and she considered herself healed afterwards. And then he took her on as an apprentice. And she was more of like a spy in the second film, where he put her into the game to keep an eye on things and made sure rules were being followed. She wasn't really meant to be tested in that film. So when they threw her, like one of the people threw her in there because you were supposed to go find the correct syringe to give you the antidote. And the dude didn't want to go in himself, so he threw her in there instead. It really had nothing to do with her, or it wasn't even her challenge.
Oh, yeah.
It was somebody else being a dick and, like, exposing her to, like, medical waste.
Yikes.
So, yeah, it's a very complicated story, and obviously I'm only explaining one section of it, and Amanda's story goes on for a couple other movies, but it's just, that's why I like it so much, is that you people from the outside see, like, you know, they see the blood, the gore, the tricks and everything, but I see a really good storyline with horror elements and some really good special effects.
Yes, I will say that. There are a lot of good effects in those movies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Saw, I feel like I said, I love the first Saw movie, but my favorite Saw movie is Saw 5.
Really?
I think it's a really cool movie in concept. And, you know, spoiler alert right now, I'll tell you, if you have not seen Saw 5, just skip a few minutes ahead. But in Saw 5, it's like a group of people that caused the death of multiple people. And they don't realize that they're all part of that. They don't know each other individually. They don't recognize each other. Only one person really knows why they're all there together. And they have to go through a series of challenges together. And each time they do a challenge, somebody dies. But they were supposed to do them all together. All the challenges were able to be done with all 5 of them. But they wouldn't. They refused to work together. They didn't see that they could have all survived. And so I think I really like the concept of that film because of that reason, that he gave them an opportunity to all live.
Yeah, it's not unbeatable.
No. And I think that's part of it, is that you can't really call him a murderer because he doesn't murder anybody. But
I think I could still call him a murderer, but, like, I get what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm just, like, playing devil's advocate a little bit, but, like, it's kind of just a complicated situation. And he's, like, a serial killer who doesn't actually murder anybody. And he's, like, a punisher. He's, like, trying to play God a little bit. So, I don't know, I think it's a really interesting story.
Yes.
And if you can handle a little gore, I think you'd enjoy it.
Okay. All right. I'll have to go back, give those movies a try. Yeah. Some of the gore, I was just like, okay, I don't get it. But I guess I never really gave them a good try.
Yeah, I mean, the storyline is worth it, I believe. I think it's a really interesting story, and I can't say that you'd ever think that, like, Jigsaw is a bad person. Because he is and he isn't. You know, he's still a human being who had wrongs done to him as well, so.
Yeah, I like that they can escape. I like that there is a way to win if they're smart.
Or if they're willing to sacrifice.
Yes.
But yeah, tell me about one of your choices.
I'll start with The Grudge, 2004. The Sam Raimi one, I think? Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one with Daphne in it.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. But The Grudge is it originally was a Japanese, like, string of movies that was sort of taken up by Sam Raimi to make them, I guess, probably more palatable for an American audience and in English. And it's about a like an American like group that comes to Japan and like lives there. I think they're teaching, but they go into this house. And if you go into this house, there is like an evil spirit there, and it will follow you out and you will die. Like if you step foot in that house, you are dead. You are going to die within a few days.
My God, I have not seen this in forever. Did they know before going in the house?
No, they didn't. They were sold the house, like a family was sold the house, and they stayed in there, and then weird stuff started happening because it's the ghost of a mother and her son, her young son, who were both killed by her husband. I won't tell you why, because spoilers, but...
It's just been a while since I've seen it.
But yes, so the mother, like, if you go into the house, she will kill you. And there's, like, a really creepy attic. There's a bunch of stuff. So then the cops go in there, and then the one detective, it follows him out. But I love that idea of it's like, oh gosh, you just stepped in the wrong house. You bought the wrong house, and it was over.
I love that concept too. I love like the haunted house concept, but I kind of like that it happens in a different country. I feel like that puts a little edge on it.
Yeah, because there's like a whole like mythology to it. There's a whole bunch of like Japanese movies before it that are like 80s era, around there, and those are also good. But I think this one was really fantastic. There's like there's a shower scene where the main girl's like washing her hair, and then a hand comes out from like in her hair. It like comes out from her head, sort of, and it like grabs her hand while she's like rubbing shampoo or whatever. That freaks me out. Or there's like, there's so many good scenes, like the weird, creepy little kid who's like just pure white with like just pitch black eyes, and he's just like sitting on the staircase, and then for some reason he meows like a cat. Weird movie, but creepy. It's like just a weird, creepy vibe to it, because there's like a hospital scene, and you see like this lady dressed all in white, super pale, with like just long black hair, just sort of like the Ring girl, but like she sort of just teleports around and stuff. That's horrifying. Just like you can't escape it.
Not even when you're not in the house.
Yeah, it follows you.
I like that. I mean, I think it kind of plays into our like 90s platform, right?
Yeah.
You know, we're starting to see more of like literal horror, more like, oh, I went into a house and now I have to pay the price.
Yeah. It's a very fun one. I like it a lot in the sense that it's like, it's not hockey mask coming after you, or like any slasher, or just a human doing it. It's more inescapable that way.
It's a curse.
Yes.
It's on you. And you can't see it, but it's with you always.
Just tethered to you.
Until you die, obviously.
Exactly. And there are a bunch of the Grudge movies. Each of them little different. There are some of them where it's like they burn down the house, but then like it's no longer tethered to the house.
No, why would you do that?
Yes,
You
and then there's
fucked up.
some where it's like they tried burning down the house, so now the house is damaged. So even if you don't step foot, even if you're just like on that street walking, it can sort of like grab you and bring you into the house. And then you're tethered. And then it comes after you.
Of course. They just make it worse.
There is one where it's like bullies who like take this poor girl into the house and like lock her in the closet. And it's like awful. But then, you know, they get what they deserved.
Yeah, I was like about to say, I was like, well, they were all in there, so they all get to die.
Except for the poor girl that gets bullied, though. That is sad.
Oh, yeah, well, obviously. Reminds me of Stir of Echoes.
Yes.
Very sad. But, dang, Sharon's sad movies now.
I know, I'm
Making me
sorry.
sad.
What's next on your list? Let's
God.
bring the spirits up a little bit. Hopefully, maybe.
Let's bring the spirits up a little bit by going down into the Paris catacombs.
Okay,
with-
all right.
As above, so below, which I know you haven't seen.
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
As Above, So Below?
Okay.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Better.
Of
About to
course
say.
I've seen that one.
Obviously, I'm a big fan. I think, gosh, it's one of the scariest modern horror movies that I've seen.
That is the only movie in several years that has scared me and made me, like, actually jump.
I agree. I think it just has those elements, kind of like The Descent, that makes you feel boxed in. As you watch.
Claustrophobic.
Yes, very much. It makes you feel as though there's no escape, that there's no way back. You have to keep pressing forward, and you don't know what's ahead. It's a very interesting film because it's a little bit historical. I hate saying historical because it's kind of not, but I was explaining it to someone the other day, and I was like, it's kind of like National Treasure meets The Descent. A little bit. You know, especially in the beginning when they're talking about... Well, basically the film is about them trying to find the Philosopher's Stone. One of the characters, her dad died looking for the stone. Well, he killed himself, but anyway, yeah. He spent his whole life looking for it. And they figure out kind of vaguely where it is. But it's in they have to use the Paris catacombs to get there. And if you don't know about the Paris catacombs, that's where they used to put their dead. So there's a lot of skeletons. A lot of skeletons.
A lot of bones.
And it is a real place. It does exist. So I think that that's part of what creeps me out about it the most is, like, it's a real place. A real place I want to visit as well. So, like...
I don't know if I want to after this movie.
You guys did not see, but Tyler rolled his eyes at me so hardcore when I said that.
Yeah, I am claustrophobic, so I think that would kill me.
I'm afraid of heights, so I'm good. You know, this is the opposite of what I'm afraid of. But I would never go spelunking, so...
All right, we'll do The Descent. How about that? I'll meet you in the middle.
No. I don't want to go spelunking. We're not doing it.
Oh.
I've seen the film. It's scary. I don't want to get stuck.
I love the As Above, So Below scene where they're crawling through, like, a tunnel. It's like a tunnel that is barely big enough to fit them, and they're crawling over bones.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the guy's getting stuck, and there's just enough space behind him to where you could see something. They don't put anything there, but I was glued to that spot, and I was so terrified to see anything there. It is a found footage sort of film as well. It's like
Yes.
It's all filmed on, like, camcorders and, like, GoPros type things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the quality isn't super low or anything, but...
Yeah, they up the quality, but it is meant to be like that,
Yes.
which I think is very important because you can only see what they can see.
Oh, yeah, and just how they... I mean, well, they have to pick up some guides, right? They pick up a few people that actually know the catacombs super well, because obviously it's illegal for you to go into certain sections of the catacomb because they're not safe, or they're not, like, you know, they're not ready to be toured. Because they actually have tour guides that will take you into the catacombs and give you some history and whatever. They're going into sections you're not allowed to go in. So they sneak in there with these, like, with the guides. And they start learning about this tunnel that nobody goes down. Not even the guides who, like, sneak down there. They knew
It's all
someone.
blocked up.
Well, yeah. I mean, and they knew somebody that actually went down there and never came back. And they said that he knew the tunnel so well. He could, like, draw you a map, but he never went down there because he felt like there was something evil. And then, of course, he never comes back.
Yeah, he went down there because curiosity, and he never came back. And that was, like, 2-3 years before this.
Yeah. So you start to get this idea that there is something evil down here. And, of course, none of the other characters care, and they just keep going.
Well, that's the direction that they need to go. That's where they need to go.
Well, eventually, I think they have to go down that direction because it gets, like, caved in.
They have to go through a tunnel, which is the correct way that their guides say to go. It's like it's way out of the way, but it's the safest route.
Yes.
And
yeah,
they
yeah.
go in the tunnel that is like a one-way tunnel. And they start crawling through, and then the guy gets stuck. They have to push him on through, and he just barely gets out, and then it caves in. And when they come out, they're right back where they started. Somehow, they went into this one-way tunnel and ended up back where they started without turning around. So it's like some weird magic thing.
I wouldn't
And then
call it
it's
magic.
It's
I call it a dark curse.
curse, yes.
I wouldn't even call it that, but I
But
don't wanna
yeah,
give
so
away
they're
too
turned
much.
around, and the only way that they can go now is this creepy blocked up passage that they start like knocking down the walls of, and then like dust comes out.
Well, and at one point, the guys are like, I won't do it. I won't go down there. But where else are you going to go? There's nowhere else to go. And I think that's what really gets me, too, is that, like, not only is the main character so driven to find this stone that she's, like, willing to die and risk others' lives for it, but there's at one point in the film that they can't go back. They have literally no choice. And things start getting weirder and weirder. They descend to a point where after they find the stone, the entire room caves in because they try to like pull the gold out. Too.
Yes, there was like some trapped gold, and then the greedy tour guides tried to like take it.
Well, she said that they could have it
Yeah.
because she
But
was trying to
come
bribe them
on.
because she only wanted the rock.
Yes.
And they steal the stone. Obviously they live, some of them. And yeah, people keep dying as we go on.
Before we get any further, though,
Mhm.
before even any of this, there's like, before they even go into the first tunnel, they're down in the caves. There's a weird group of singers, like singing operatic stuff, like crazy, intense music, like in the cave, and like one of them just stares at the camera for a second. That is so creepy.
There's so many creepy moments because there's parts where they like turn a corner and there's nothing and they're fine. And then there's other parts where they go around a corner and they can start hearing like crackling of fire. And you're like, fire in a cave? And they go around the corner and there's a car on fire. And you're like, where did that come from? Or there's the one dude that was like their friend who got lost in the tunnel. And he's different.
He's down there for
Somehow.
3 years, and then they find him there in this closed off tunnel, and he's like, "You didn't even look for me." Oh, that was so creepy.
He like, there was just something wrong about him. And there's just a lot of different moments where that movie kind of leaves you on the edge of your seat. It scares you in a very real way, in a very literal way.
There's that scene where, and again, it's like first person camera. He's looking down this tunnel that he's gonna have to go down, and then he looks back, and then he's looking down this tunnel, and he looks back, and he's like, okay, well, they're not gonna do it again. He's fine. He looks down this tunnel, looks back, and there's a woman there just like coming at him, and it's horrifying.
I think the scariest part in that film for me was when the main character's trying to like return the stone. So she's literally by herself because I always call him Jonah because he plays Jonah on Superstore. But I don't know if you've seen the show, but it always makes me laugh because he's just not a very serious actor to me, but he's really good in the film. She's trying to save his life and she has to return the stone and then come back. And she like falls into this like area where there's just a ton of blood like underneath her, and then hands come out from the blood and like pull her underneath the blood, and she's just literally covered in blood. And it's just
Talking about the descent over here.
yeah, it very similar, yes. And it does give you that same feeling, but it's more evil. It's like they're literally descending into hell and then have to find their way back. It's a little bit more deep too with the concept of as above, so below, being like it's more about as you are inside, you are outside.
Yeah.
There's
And
more to
there's
it.
like a little bit of like a biblical aspect to it because it
Mhm.
says like I don't remember how many feet down it was, but like they believed that that many feet down was hell.
And they wrote like the passage that's supposed to be like written over hell,
Yes.
abandon all hope,
Yeah.
whatever. So
Ye who enter.
very spooky film. We could talk about it forever.
It is like a damn near perfect horror movie.
I used to have parties for Halloween, and I would always pick like a couple movies to watch at the end. And when I showed this film, probably the year it came out, 2014, one of my friends cried. It was so scary, which I don't blame her. I almost cried the first time I saw it. So, very scary film. If you watch it in a dark room for the first time,
It is a fantastic movie.
it will scare you. So, if you want to be scared, I think this film will do it for you. And if you've seen Superstore, you could see Jonah. He's in the film. I'm sorry, I can't get
That's
over
your
it.
selling point?
Yes, if you like Superstore, Jonah is in the film.
This is one of the greatest modern horror movies because of Superstore.
No, it's just got that real horror aspect. It really does work its way to scaring you, partially using history and religion and the Philosopher's Stone's in there. I mean, come on.
Harry Potter.
Yeah. Or they call it the Sorcerer's Stone in the
Yeah.
English version. American version, I should say. But yeah, tell me about your next film choice.
I'm going to go with Trick or Treat, released in 2007. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie so much. It is sort of a collection of Halloween stories, sort of, that all interweave into each other. Like, in the very beginning, you see someone that is, like, taking down all of her Halloween decorations. And at the end of the movie, you also see her. And it's like, here, spoiler alert, she dies. You see her die at the beginning, but you don't see what gets her. And then at the end, you see what gets her. All of the stories intertwine. There's parts where, like, you see an interaction from one character's point of view, and then you see what really happened from a different character's point of view. It's so cool. I love how it was directed and how the story goes. And it has one of my favorite horror icons, Sam, the little trick-or-treater kid who, Sam stands for Sam Hain, Halloween. But I think that movie is fantastic. And I don't want to, like, spoil anything because there's a lot of stuff in there where it's like you don't know until you see it later on in the movie, like what things are. But it is very cool. I don't really know what to say about it without giving too much away.
Well, I will say, if you're confused about the concept of the film, it's basically like a scary Love Actually, right? We kind of get all of these different stories that overlap and kind of become part of one another, and it's the same night, but experienced from so many different angles. And I think one of the things that we should talk about is like the mascot of the whole thing.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, I mean that movie's making like kind of a comeback.
It really is. I was surprised when Spirit Halloween came to town and there was a lot of trick-or-treat merch. There was a lot of costumes, a lot of little bobbleheads. There was a full-sized one. Could just have a little Sam in my house.
Nope. No, thank you.
I need that.
He's spooky. It looks too real.
He's cute.
He is.
He's cute spooky.
But like, I don't know, after watching the film and he's got the sucker and he's trying to murder people, it freaks me out. It's a good film though. Like, story-wise, it really keeps you on the edge of your seat, and there's so many crazy stuff going on in each individual story, and the way it all comes together is just, masterpiece beautiful.
That's a movie that I can watch over and over again and still find something that I didn't see before.
I keep thinking of like the different stories, and I really like the father and son. That one's the one that
Yes.
I remember the most. It's been a second since I've seen it.
And then, like, you see the son, and he has his father's, like, his father's the principal. And you see his son sitting out handing candy to trick-or-treaters, and he has his dad's, like, outfit on. And he has his glasses and everything, and the blood-covered shirt. So there's, like, little things in there. And that happens, like, way later in the movie, at the end almost.
There's a lot of little details, and it does have a lot of rewatchability because of that. Because the first time you watch it, you're really just trying to, like, keep everything separate as you watch, and then you kind of have to force yourself to see it as a whole. It's easier to get the whole story once you've seen it a few times.
Yes, I will say, like, the first time watching, you might be a little confused at the very beginning. It's like, okay, what does this have to do with the other thing? And then it goes, oh, it's all connected. It's all, like, the same Halloween night, which is great. I love that.
And just like Love Actually. Or, what's the Valentine's Day one? I forget. It has Ashton Kutcher in it. But, one of the things that I wanted to point out about this film is that I feel like it could be enjoyed by younger horror audiences. So, like, 14-year-old range. I don't feel like it's not super sexual. It's not super duper gory. It's not, like, over the line.
There are some parts.
I just feel like somebody in high school, if they were more mature, they could enjoy this. It's not necessarily just for adults. I feel like there are other age groups that could enjoy this film. Not that I'm not here rating the film or suggesting that 14-year-olds watch this film. I'm just saying that they could possibly enjoy it.
Yes, there's a part in the middle that is, like, a little sketchy, but overall it's pretty tame.
And maybe that's why it got so popular, too.
Yes, I mean, you see people, like, dressing their kids as Sam. It's fantastic.
Well, to be fair, our generation dressed us as Scream, as Ghostface, so...
That's true. That is so weird to me.
Even though we've never seen it.
Yeah, middle schoolers, I was like, do you know what that is? Because I don't. What is that? What is that from?
They're like, well, it's just a scary face.
It's the ghost face. Okay, from Ghostface. Okay.
I didn't even know he was called Ghostface. I don't know, he was just, like, part of it. I was like, oh, it's a scary costume. Generic scary costume.
I've heard slasher, ghost face, scare face, scream face.
Scream face. It's Stab. The movie's pronounced Stab.
Stab 5? I still need to see the new Scream.
I really do need to as well. I was going to, and then by the time I got around to it, the cinema only had it on at like 9:30, and I was like, oh, so I'm going to be there till midnight. No, thank you. But I'm just getting old. As you know, the people who calculated my age after I said what year I was born know how old I am. And they know. If they're the same age, they understand. Can't stay up till midnight anymore. Can't stay up past midnight.
All right, Granny, what's your next film choice?
Rude. You're calling me Granny, but you picked the older horror movies.
I did.
Remember? You picked the old ones. You're the one who likes
You're
the
hipping
old music,
with the kids.
too. He likes all the old stuff, but I'm the grandma, apparently.
True.
The movie I wanted to talk about is from 2013. So, pretty close to As Above, So Below. Just 1 year behind. It's called You're Next. And that's You Are Next. For all the kids at home that don't know the difference between your, and your. This is the You Are Next, your version. You understand. It's a home invasion horror movie is how I describe it. It's kind of a complicated, interesting turn of events, but essentially it starts off about this couple that the gentleman is introducing her to his parents for the first time at their, like, summer home or something, because they're, like, super rich. And they say that in, like, one of the first scenes of the movie, by the way, how rich they are. And she gets to meet all of his siblings and his parents, and they're all getting to know each other, and it's just so nice. And he's, like, her boyfriend is, like, kind of like the black sheep of the family. Like, the brother keeps calling him chubby and stuff. They say he's, like, a cherub or whatever. I just remember that the boyfriend's name is Crispin. And I always thought that was a really weird name, but kind of interesting. Crispin. Like my bacon is crispin in the pan, you know?
Yeah.
But, so Crispin is like, why does everyone treat me like this? I hate that my family treats me like a baby.
Oh, my family. I hate my family.
Yes, exactly. And, then their home gets invaded. Like, the first really scary things that happen in the film, besides the first scene, which I totally skipped over, but you'll know when you see it, you'll understand. But, I don't know, you've never seen this movie, have you?
It sounds familiar. I don't think I have, or at least not in a while.
It's basically like, they shoot arrows through the window while they're having dinner and kills, like, one of the brother-in-laws.
See, that sounds so familiar.
It's very, like, it's just sudden. There's really no build-up to it. It's just, boom, there's an arrow in his back and he's dead. And everybody's like, hit the ground. We're all gonna die. And they're trying to, like, sneak through the living room without getting shot through the windows. And pretty quickly in this film, you realize that Crispin's girlfriend is, like, a total fucking badass. And,
Okay.
you know, Mike, you can edit out the F word that I just dropped. But, she's a total badass. She rocks. She just starts doing the most brutal stuff, right? Shortly after the whole arrow thing happens, she's taking boards and smacking, like, nails through them and putting them by the window, so if they come through, they'll step on nails, right? She is insane. And she's probably the reason I like this movie the most, because she's someone that you don't really expect that's gonna, like, murder a bunch of people to protect, you know, herself and, you know, her new family, I guess, that she just met. She's also Australian, which I think was pretty interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, they make their way into the house. They're killing the family one by one. And I will not ruin the ending because it is honestly amazing. But there's some really crazy scenes in there. All the home invaders wear these white animal masks. And if you know me in real life, you know that I went as one of them as Halloween a couple years in a row, I think.
Oh.
But yeah, they're just like very spooky, kind of like ghostly masks, and like one of them's like a fox, one of them's a wolf or whatever. There's a sheep, and they're kind of like anonymous evil killers. When you first like get to know what's the situation and what's happening, and there's just some really brutal scenes. Like there's at one point where the family's like, okay, the fastest runner of us is gonna run to the car and then go get help, right? And they're preparing to open the door for her, and they're like, okay, get ready to run, because you're going to have to go like that. And they open the door, she runs, and they had put, like, fishing line across the front, and she, like, slit her throat on it. Yeah, it's super brutal, because she runs right into it with her throat and bleeds to death. It's
like razor wire or something?
Yeah, it's super intense. It was, like, invisible. You couldn't see it unless you were up against it. So there's a bunch of really scary scenes. There's a scene at the end where I feel really bad calling her Crispin's girlfriend. I cannot remember her name for the life of me. And Crispin stands in my mind. But she like sets up a trap with an axe, so that when you open the door, an axe will like smack you in the head. And towards the end, there's like the cops come.
Oh no.
Yeah, and they shoot her through the window. Because they see her killing somebody, and they think that she's the murderer that they got called for, and they shoot her through the window, non-deathly shot, and then one of them walks through the door, and that's like the ending scene of the film. But I won't ruin the really good twist because it's amazing. But if you want to see like a really freaking cool lady, like
just killing some
just
guys,
killing people that deserve to be killed, you will enjoy this. It's all the self-defense, you know, according to the lawyers. It's all self-defense. This girl knows what's up. And if you're in the zombie apocalypse, this is the girl that you want to be on your team. You don't even have to worry about anything if she's on your team.
Okay. All right.
But apparently her family was, like, just really worried about the apocalypse or something. And they, like, trained her. She got trained in, like, a military base in Australia. So, yeah, she's, like, professionally trained to kill people.
Crazy strong military Aussie.
It's a weird fact to bring up in front of your boyfriend's family for the first time meeting.
I guess. Important though. Hey, that's pretty good.
The film is honestly one of my favorite modern horror films because of how different it is. And I think that's where a lot of modern horror films kind of lose interest for me, is that they keep doing the same things. They keep rehashing the same stories or using the formula, which I don't mind if people use the formula as long as it's creative. It's like Hoax, right?
Yeah.
Watched it the other day. That's why I bring it up. But they use the formula where they pick off the group of people one by one, but it's Bigfoot. The movie's about Bigfoot. How cool and unique can you get? Because it sounds really funny, but it's not a horror comedy. And it's actually really good. So I want to see more unique stuff. And I think that's why Your Next got me, is because it's unique. It's not rehashed stuff that we've already seen. It's something different to be afraid of, and they do it rather successfully. But yeah.
I'm going to have to give that one a watch.
You have to.
It sounds very familiar. I might have seen it at some point.
I think it's on Tubi right now, actually.
Okay.
Or Hulu. Maybe both.
I'll have to check.
Okay.
But my next one is 28 Days Later, 2002.
I love this movie.
This is a fantastic movie. And this is sort of like the zombie craze. We're getting into it. 2000s, I feel like, was quite a heavily zombie-saturated type of era that has only persisted till now. And it's different in terms of zombie movies. These are the fast ones. These are the ones that are like running top speed. It's so amazing, and it starts just like The Walking Dead. He wakes up in a hospital. Everybody's gone. He's like blocked in there, and he walks around, and it's in England. It's in London.
Oh, I love British movies. I feel like they're just a different kind of horror movie. I feel like that's part of the reason 28 Days Later is so good, too.
I know. But it's just so cool to see just like empty London, empty England, just like no one there.
Well, and he doesn't remember. He doesn't know what happened. Could you imagine waking up in a hospital and the entire city you live in is empty? What a crazy way to begin a film.
And you see him like grab a plastic bag and start collecting cans and other things, and he like raids the Pepsi machine in the hospital. And I just love that idea to like start things off. He's like, ooh, things don't seem right. I'm gonna just start grabbing things I might need.
You're like, I think I need a cola.
And you see him grab like money too, and he's like, pretty soon on there, he's like, oh, that's not gonna help me. Ooh, just gives up on the money. But it's a fantastic movie. He meets up with some survivors. Of course, it has the horrible humans. There are some bad ones, of course.
And this film is definitely not for anybody under 18.
Oh no.
There's a scene in this film that is hard for me to watch.
Yes. But the zombies in particular are very cool, because it's like, I feel like these are the first really fast ones. It's not like zombies, it's a rage virus.
Yeah.
And it's started by like a rage-infected chimpanzee that some activists try to like help. And then it like breaks out and it bites one of them, and that's how it starts.
Well, they tried to release all the animals in this testing lab, and
which is silly. You don't just release them out there.
you don't know what they got.
Exactly. And even like a drop of blood will just turn you.
It's that quick, and there's so few survivors, too. Like, right away, you start realizing, oh, wow, there's really not a lot of people left. Happened pretty fast.
Pretty quack. Yes, it is a fantastic movie. The sequel, I also love. Just the opening scene of the main character being chased down by a herd of zombies that are just sprinting down a hill at him is horrifying. 28 weeks later, and like as the names imply, it's like how long it's been since the initial start. So in the first one, it's like, okay, England has fallen. Everything on the island is gone. All military has pulled out. The rest of the world isn't infected.
No, I mean, that happened in England. Heck yeah, they just closed the borders. They're an island.
Yeah, they closed everything down. There's no hope for rescue. But then 28 weeks later, the military goes in years later after all of the zombies have starved out and died. And they land in there and they start to like slowly but surely get like a foothold in again of England and making houses again, making things safe. And of course it goes wrong, because of course it does.
Well, it's a sequel. Something's gotta go wrong.
Of course.
Still a horror film.
And especially a zombie movie, someone's got to be dumb and get infected.
Always.
Of course. But yeah, especially for a zombie movie, because there are a lot of like not so great zombie movies out there. But this one is masterclass, fantastic.
Oh, the story is so dimensional and just, I don't know, you're not just seeing people desperately running away from zombies. You're seeing them try to still enjoy things, try to still have families. You see them try to make relationships among each other and get to know each other. And you see them survive together and still try to thrive. And I think that's kind of what people do. It is kind of a survival horror. And they're trying to live. They're not just trying to survive. They are trying to live eventually. And I don't know, there's just a lot of different aspects to it. You know, obviously they think that they find help at this military base. That's not the case. They meet really bad humans and then they add people to their group as well. So it's not just about the zombies or, you know, the rage virus. It's about more than that.
It's about humans dealing with loneliness, dealing with just trauma. Because good Lord, if that happened, I don't know how I would deal with that. Just everyone being gone.
Well, and the main character realizing his family isn't there.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's brutal in itself. And obviously, pretty early in the film, they pick up a child whose father is... They meet the father and the daughter, and the father ends up getting turned, and they're responsible for the daughter. And that's really hard, too. You know, he was trying to protect his child. So I think there's a lot of really human things that happen in that film that make it more than just a horror film. It becomes real to us because we could see ourselves doing the same things if we had to.
Yes. And that scene where he turns is just...
It's so awful.
It is sad. It's just awful. Depressing.
There's a lot of really sad parts in that film, but I just feel like the ending is what I remember the most, and that's the most hopeful part of the film.
Yeah.
You know, they at the end of the film, they're like in a house, and they've clearly been living there for a while, and they sew together a bunch of clothing to create like a help me, like on the grass in front of their place. So it's just kind of this like they haven't given up. They're still fighting.
Yes.
And they're thriving now. They have materials. They have things to use. They found a house, a place to live. So I think there is this element of like, even if this happened, we're not over.
Yeah. And I like that in contrast to something like The Walking Dead, where it's like, those zombies should have rotted 2 seasons ago, like gone away. Or there's like, they're very slow moving, and if you get bit, you're slow to turn. You have all these intense moments where people are crying and saying goodbye to their loved ones. But 28 days later, it's like you get a drop of blood in your system. You're like gone pretty quick. There's no goodbye. It's just whiplash.
It's like, okay, I'm infected. Kill me. Kill me now.
2 seconds ago
Or
we
I will
were
kill
having
you.
fun driving, and then, uh-oh, you gotta kill Dad.
Yep. That's really what it's like. And I don't know. I think it says something about modern culture as well. And, I hesitate to say modern. It is modern, right? But it's talking about, like, things that we're afraid of, right? Illness, obviously. We're afraid of, the human race being gone. We're afraid of a lot of different things. And I feel like, what Professor Allman said was, very on point. The horror movies that we just talked about really do encompass a lot of the things that we are afraid of. Home invasions. Oh my gosh. Just last night, I laid down to bed, lights out. I was getting uncomfortable, and I was like, oh my God, did I lock the door? And I had to get up and see if I locked the door. Even just the thought of somebody coming into your place and killing people out the window, it's very possible and very scary. And I think that our fears are starting to become more literal, more real. We're not afraid of monsters under the bed. We're afraid of going down into the catacombs, being around dead bodies. We're afraid of very real things.
It's no longer Freddy and Jason. It's more realistic than that. Things that could happen.
I think we're afraid of punishment, too.
Yeah.
We all do bad things, Whatever, I'll admit it. I flipped somebody off while driving the other day.
How dare you?
Right?
I'm a saint.
I disagree. But, the Saw movies is retribution for what we did. For, what anybody could do. Anybody could be part of a Saw game, if you think about it. I mean, one lady was just a drug user. She didn't even do anything wrong besides, do drugs. So, I don't know. I feel like we see evidence of that in almost every film. And, like, Trick or Treat,
You break the Halloween rules, you get punishment.
Yeah.
It's like the whole point of that movie.
I think, yeah, I mean, there is kind of that, like, retribution, punishment for doing things wrong. And I don't know, maybe that is a reflection on our generation. And, these are the films that I grew up watching. As Above, So Below came out when I was in high school, a couple years before I graduated. So, I don't know, we're starting to see that more. And we're just starting to become part of that culture, being afraid of current. And obviously, we're not talking about 2020 films, because we're going to talk about that in a different episode.
Yes, and there are some series that, like the Conjuring universe, that we didn't touch on really, but that are so influential that they might get their own episode at some point, something like that.
I mean, I have said before that The Conjuring is one of the very few modern horror movies that actually scares me. And you're right, they deserve more love than we can give them right now.
Yes.
So we'll save that for a different
These are
episode.
just a few of our favorites.
Yes, and obviously I had a whole short list, and I know Tyler did too, that we'd love to talk to you guys about, but, on a different episode. But, it kind of feels like it's final kill time.
I think so.
So tell me, what is your final kill?
I'm doing a switcheroo here. I'm going with Shaun of the Dead in 2004.
Stop.
Because I have to.
Stop.
Because I have to.
You can bring up Shaun of the Dead again. Okay.
I'm going to bring up Shaun of the Dead again because I love that movie. It is a fantastic movie. Masterclass in comedy. Not super horror, but horror when it needs to be. There's sad moments. There's, like I said, the guy going out the window, getting his guts ripped out. That's pretty horrific. And I just think that's a fantastic movie.
I always thought it was really funny. Like, I genuinely thought it was funny, but it takes itself seriously enough to where you can have those kind of spooky moments. I like it. I think it's one of those really good horror comedies that toe the line, as I say.
Yes. What is your final kill?
My final kill is also a horror comedy, but it's my favorite horror comedy. It is from 2015. It's called Zombieverse. You're correct. It is about zombie beavers. Very
no
literally.
way.
If you like horror comedy, this movie is great for you because it really toes that line between scary and funny really well. Because there are those, like, it is kind of like, you get that feeling that you're watching a B movie, but it takes itself so much more seriously than I think most movies like that do. The one-liners are fantastic. Tyler knows, I've talked to him about this movie so many times. I love this movie because it's so rewatchable for me. It captures all those things that I love about the formula, you know, the group of the kids that die one by one, but also that it has those comical moments where
It's literally called Zombieverse. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, there's at one point where Sam says, he says, that's gnarly. Like, who says that anymore? It's hilarious. Or...
It's campy.
There's a sex scene where one of them... It's just bad, but he's just like, I feel like a Power Ranger. Who says that? But the delivery is so great.
That's your favorite? That's your one?
Not.
That's your final kill?
There's also a part where they're standing outside. They're in the house and they're like, what's that sound? They're like, it sounds like babies. And he's like, yeah, crazy fucking babies. It's so funny to me. It has really, really good practical effects. They use puppets for the Zombieverse, which sounds cheesy, but I love puppets.
I just can't get over you saying Zombieverse in like a serious sentence.
But it gets better because there's actually like a song for Zombieverse that's like big band sounding. It's great. It's so good. And I just love it. Big fan. I just think it's something different to watch. It is, like I said before, there's a lot of same when it comes to modern horror movies. Zombieverse is different. It is ridiculous at times.
It's got zombie beavers, of course.
The director even makes like a cameo. It's great. There's so many good moments. It's hilarious. There's a dog. It's all good. You'll like it. You likey the good movie.
Okay.
It's streaming for free on Tubi. That's TUBI.
We're not sponsored.
Not
by
sponsored.
Tubi, but it is on there.
And it is very, very good. But yeah, that's my final kill. Watch Zombieverse, laugh a little, enjoy some Shaun of the Dead.
Yes, fantastic movie. Go watch both of them, and then, I mean, we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us for this discussion on modern horror films, and mostly about horror comedies and other scary stuff. But we hope we didn't scare you too much.
Yes. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Kreepy_Kulture, both with K's. And join us next Friday, hopefully, as we discuss literary horror. And don't say you'll be right back, because this is a horror movie, baby, and you know you won't be back. Come on.
I'll be right back. Ha 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 ha.